Hi, I'm Maya Berry. Welcome to Viewpoint. Jim is away this week. On tonight's program, we're going to get analysis of the situation in Syria and yesterday's Arab League action from Murhaf Jouaijati of the National Defense University. Then we'll look at Tuesday's raid on the Occupy Wall Street camp and what's next for the movement with Ziad Gilani of the thinkprogress.org. But first, it's been 8 years since the signing of the Geneva Accord, a landmark Israeli-Palestinian agreement that proposed solutions to contentious issues such as Jerusalem, borders, and refugees. Tonight, we'll talk with two key negotiators of that accord, former Knesset member Yossi Beilin, later in the program, and my first guest, Samih Al-Abed, who's been deeply involved in Middle East peace negotiations for many years. In addition to Geneva, he participated in peace talks at Camp David, Taba, and Annapolis. He's a former minister in the Palestinian Authority and currently heads the nonprofit Palestinian Housing Council. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you to be with you.
And I had the pleasure of learning before we started, an architect and interest in design, so I said we could do a separate interview on those topics. I want to start by asking you about Taba, because Taba is one of those agreements where people really truly believe we were about as close as we were going to get in terms of getting a deal. How did you feel being there? What did you think would come out of those talks? And at the end of the day, why do you think it didn't work?
Well, Taba was a continuation of the process which started in Camp David before. Unfortunately, Camp David failed because there were no interest from the Israeli side to go ahead with serious talks about the final status negotiation. And also it was not prepared well by the Americans, even though they both tried to deny that fact and tried most of the time to blame the Palestinians for the failure of Camp David. Unfortunately, this is not truth, and some of those who participated in the Camp David agreement, they came out outspoken to tell the truth to the people. We thought Taba, it came after the parameter from President Clinton, and we thought that this will lead us toward solving some of the problems that we were facing before and not identifying exactly what are the things that is not acceptable from both sides. Unfortunately, during that time in Taba was very limited time for the Prime Minister of Israel, Yehuda Barak. He asked to continue for the election, and the election came out, and we could not really manage to come to an agreement because of that. Even though we were close, at least from the point of view of the politician, that we were close more than we were in Camp David. But unfortunately, because of the election in Israel and the failure of Barak to become the Prime Minister again, then Sharon took over, and it did not really succeed.
Contrasting that with the Geneva Accords and what you were able to, actually sign an agreement. You had Palestinians and Israelis come to a place of having a signed agreement there. The mishap there, if you could give us sort of just a quick summary of what you...
It was a continuation of that process. We took what happened in Camp David, Clinton parameter, and in Taba, and it was a continuation of that process as well. The same people who were in Camp David, mainly, the same people who were negotiating with each other, which they failed in the beginning of the process to agree on the issues. We spent at least 2 years for that, and we went into details for all the issues. As they usually said, the devil in the details, but we went into the details. We had the framework, and we went into the details in order to try to find a model to tell the people that it can be done. The whole aspect of Geneva Accord was telling the people that an agreement can be done. This is a model. We would like to see the politician, the leadership, to look at it and to see where we can meet where we can disagree on something like this, but to continue the process. So the same people, they manage to get together and to have some agreement, probably not really according to what each party wanted to have, but at least we felt that this is something that we can live with. Then both people can be live together side by side, and it was the signal for the two-state solution.
The framework, basically, that laid out that. At that time, when you say the devil's in the details, the agreement was specific about even the number of settlers that would have to be removed. At that time, you were looking at numbers of nearly 170,000. 2003. Looking at that today, given what you know and the experience personally you've had in trying to get to a place where negotiations produce a change for Palestinians, what do you think is possible today?
It is still possible, but as you know, the Israeli government was trying to race against the clock in order to put more facts on the ground. And this is why the Palestinian side are demanding that this freeze of settlement building is the starting point for the negotiation. At least this will tell us that they have no intention whatsoever in order to finalize an agreement built on reality. Adding more, taking more space, adding more settlements, it will create a problem for them and for us. And what wanted from our side, that an interference from the United States, from the quartet, to put an end to that in order for us to start the real negotiation. And I think President Abbas, he mentioned that all the time, that negotiation, 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 but we have to agree on the framework and to freeze the settlement according to the quartet statement. And if they will continue to do that, it will be a problem for them as well, because we will not accept any facts on the ground that is beyond what we already have in mind for the state of Palestine to be in the border of 1967 with a limited swab that people can live with. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us and for them as well.
I want to ask you what you must have heard when President Obama was giving his speech to AIPAC's policy conference, when he referenced the 1967 borders, which are, of course, part of the Geneva Accords,
yes,
something that is fairly accepted, land for peace, 1-to-1 ratio. When you heard the controversy that ensued after he made a reference to 67 borders, what was your sense of sort of the American political dynamic on the issue of settlements?
Well, it was, for us, it's unfair, and we feel that injustice was made for us on this issue. It has been the same way with the interference of the United States as a broker from day one. They were not fair, and we feel that there is no justice in their stand for this way of solving the problem. We feel that the statement that was made by President Obama first, in May 19th, I think he made the statement for the border of 1967 and with swap land, which is acceptable, and the two capitals for the Palestinians. That was accepted by our politician, by our leadership, that they will go ahead with that. But in order to go for this, there is a prerequisite for this, and it's not a condition. A prerequisite as it was signed in the quartet statement, that they have to freeze the settlement instead of putting more facts on the ground and make it difficult for both of us, and they have to agree on the framework which was set by President Obama. This is our stand, and we will continue dealing with this issue.
It was just remarkable at the time because it's literally what the foundation of negotiations has been for nearly 2 decades, and we treated it as if it had been this landmark statement of some sort. I'm delighted to say that our next guest, Dr. Yossi Beilin, is actually here and able to join us. He served as a member of the Knesset for 11 years and in several ministerial posts in the labor government of Yitzhak Rabin, Shimon Peres, and Ehud Barak. He was involved in the 1993 Oslo Accords, the 2001 Taba talks, and was a signatory and primary architect of the 2003 Geneva Accord. Dr. Beilin, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm delighted because you planned to be with us for, I think, the second or the end segment where we wouldn't be able to have you together. So I'm glad that we can reconvene you this way.